Welcome to the Dynasty Pros Devy Show. Alongside SC Romero and Justin Taylor, I'm Tommy Harvey. Tonight we'll dive into our Devy tight end rankings and discuss a few sleepers. All that coming up now. Hey, before we get started, go ahead and do us a favor, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. If you'd like to know when we go live, make sure you hit that notification bell. Let's just go and jump into it. How you guys doing tonight?
Good, man. Good. Excited.
Good to be here.
Talk. Let's
Yeah.
get tight ends this time.
Yeah, been about 3 weeks, I guess. You were on vacation last week, so we pushed it back a week, and then I'm going on vacation next week. So,
Tis the season for vacation.
Yep, tis the season. Well, let's go and jump into our tight end rankings. Matter of fact, let's go and do this a little differently. Let's start with SC tonight. What you got going on, buddy?
So for overall tight end rankings, I think this is a consensus number one for us. It's Brock Bowers out of Georgia. He's looking like a unicorn prospect again coming out of Georgia, and he's probably going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. My next one is Ja'Tavion Sanders out of Texas. I have Brian Nesbitt out of North Carolina. We'll talk more about him on why I have him so high. Oscar Delp out of Georgia. I mean, Georgia is just becoming a solid tight end factory, and I think once Brock Bowers leaves, Oscar Delp will get into that. And then Jaheim Bell out of Florida State will wrap out my top five in my overall tight end rankings right now.
Sure thing. JT?
Yeah, I'm pretty similar with SC there. I got Brock Bowers at 1. I got Ja'Tavion Sanders from Texas at 2 as well. I've got Delp one higher spot at number 3. I just think when he comes in for Bowers, he's just going to be an absolute stud. So I want him and Devy everywhere. So I got Delp at 3. Jaheim Bell for me is number 4 from Florida State. And then I've actually got Mason Taylor sliding into my top 5. Mason Taylor from LSU as my number 5, but very similar to what SC's got.
Yeah, mine are actually very similar to yours. I think we got two guys flip-flopped here. Mine, I got Brock Bowers, number 1. He's the consensus. Number 2, I got Ja'Tavion Sanders out of Texas. Number 3, I went Mason Taylor out of LSU. I'm really, really high on him. I think he's going to be outstanding. Number 4, I got Oscar Delp at Georgia. And then number 5, I got Jaheim Bell at Florida State, former South Carolina Gamecock.
That's little rankings. I like our 1-2 seems to be the unanimous guys at Bowers and Sanders. Those are just some giants there, and I think they're going to be great prospects when we look at this time next year. Going into looking at the rookies or incoming rookies.
I think so, and there's actually quite a few guys who could end up making that jump into that top 5 range over the upcoming season. One guy that I'm super, super high on, we'll get into later. It's just been an issue of him getting on the field, staying healthy, staying mentally healthy. All that goes into it. His freshman year, again, we'll discuss him a little bit later on, but he'll. There's a guy that I am super, super high on. Let's go and jump into our 2024 guys. SC.
Yeah. So number 1, no surprise here, Brock Bowers. I mean, just all around great talent. He has nice speed. Can kind of burn past the linebackers and tracks the ball very well. Again, I think he'll be a first-round pick in the NFL draft next year. Ja'Tavion Sanders, just an effective route runner, and he's sold his skills in blocking, with Bijan in the backfield. So it's going to be an interesting look in what Texas does. Of course, I think they'll still run the ball pretty well, but I think they're going to kind of shift to a little bit more pass-heavy without Bijan there. You don't have that unicorn in Bijan Robinson there, or even with Roschon Johnson there. So now you have to be a little bit more creative, and I think Ja'Tavion Sanders, just in his versatility, will be a huge product for Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning, whoever ends up taking that full role there. Brian Nesbitt, really at number 3, I have this with the assumption that Drake May has a lot of open targets to get. And Brian Nesbitt, I has a great catch radius. He knows what to do after the catch, and I think he could just be a nice target hog for Drake May. And as we were talking earlier before the show, some of these tight ends kind of lack production all the way up to the year before they get drafted, and then boom, we see something great. And I think Nesbitt could fit into that role to just have a great season out there in North Carolina and be that main target for Drake May possibly. Jakeem Bell's my number 4, Florida State. He's just an effective runner and has good footwork. For his size, he's strong and he knows how to bring the ball down, and you probably won't get a contested catch on him. He's definitely coming down with it just in his strength alone. But then what he does after that catch, I mean, there's some plays where he's stiff-arming guys just one hand, and it looks like it's just a finger touching them, and he's out there. He just has that strength upper body to make the play happen. My number 5 is actually going to be Michael Trigg from Mississippi, Ole Miss. Just a big body wide receiver that has the playmaking abilities once the ball's in his hands. Going through my scouting, I'm looking at these guys, and a lot of them are big body wide receivers, basically, right? A lot of them have strength, but it comes down to what they do after that catch. And I was really impressed with what I saw Michael Trigg do whenever he had the ball in his hands and the effectiveness he had in making a play once that ball is in his hands.
JT?
Yeah, for me, again, I got Bowers and Sanders, top 2 guys, just like we said overall. I think even Sanders, I don't know how much he gets as far as targets this year, but we saw in the NFL, just because you didn't get a lot of targets in college doesn't mean the NFL won't love you. I mean, we saw a lot of guys who got hurt, had less than 30 catches, and they went in the 2nd or 3rd round of the NFL draft. So that's why I want Sanders in Devy leagues. I think he's a guy that even if he doesn't get huge production at Texas, I think the NFL is going to like him. I think he's one of those guys that has a chance to be a high draft pick. And I think Bowers, I've heard some people, starting to come out on Bowers. They're like, oh, he's a little small. I think he'll get bigger. And I actually think whatever NFL team takes him, I think he's going to be a superstar. They'll figure out how to use him. Whatever's the best way they can use him. The guy's just got too much ability not to be a first-round pick. He's somewhere I want everywhere. If you haven't got him yet, he's going to be tough to get. But I definitely like Bowers, especially if you're in any kind of two tight end or big tight end premium league. I think he's a guy you're going to want in the future. Bell's up there again for me, another guy from Florida State. I just think he's super athletic. I think he's a guy that has a shot, even if he doesn't get a ton of production at Florida State. I think they'll be good this year, and I think just because they're good, they'll have more scouts and teams checking them out. I think that's going to give him a shot for higher draft capital. Number 4 for me, a guy I know that Tommy, you like a ton, and I like a ton. Eric Gilbert for Nebraska. Guy has been all over the place. LSU, Georgia. Now he's at Nebraska. Guy was just an unreal athlete coming out of high school. 5-star, one of the highest rated tight ends ever. Just has not been able to get the field. So had all kinds of off the field issues. If he can make it work at Nebraska, I mean, teams are just begging to draft him. I know teams want him. So they haven't seen him play, but it's just because his physical makeup. And I think he's one of those guys that is just going to crush the combine. If he gets to the combine, I think he's going to look amazing, and teams are going to want him. So the question is, can he get on the field? Can he get a shot? If he can't get on the field and play and crush the combine, I think his draft stock goes way, way up. If he doesn't play, I think maybe he's one of those late round flyer picks. He's one of those undrafted free agents, got a chance to make a squad. I just want to see a guy like that get on the field and see what he can show. I'm taking him here at 4, strictly out of upside. I've got him as my number 4 guy. I think he's 100% upside. I'm taking the chance on him in Devy leagues. I took him in a couple leagues last year, knowing that there was a chance he wasn't going to play at all, but I like the upside of him, so that's why I really like him in Devy. And then I took Michael Trigg, another guy, old USC transfer at Ole Miss. I think maybe now after another year at Ole Miss, he has a shot to really kind of get involved in the offense. I think it's going to be a pretty good offense down there. And he's just one of those guys. He's got all the physical traits. All the traits you're looking for. I don't know if that's going to turn into production at the college level, but I know it's going to get him looks at the NFL level.
Yeah. With mine, I'm going to go Brock Bowers number 1. That's, obviously it's the consensus. He is just a weapon. Georgia utilizes him on end arounds. He runs away from everybody. He's the type of guy who's just an athletic freak that will immediately slot into being a top 5 dynasty tight end, in my opinion. Number 2, Jatavian Sanders. like you said, big body wide receiver. He's going to go up. He's going to be a mismatch for everybody. Number 3 guy, Jaheim Bell, kind of the same mold, just a weapon. South Carolina used him a lot out of the backfield last season. Now he's transferred down to Florida State. Probably going to play with a more consistent quarterback in Jordan Travis. So he'll probably get a lot more opportunity. My number 4 guy, Michael Trigg, all the physical tools. Is he just a spring game monster, or can he put it together on a consistent basis during the season? Ole Miss brought in Caden Prescorn, the tight end out of Memphis. He's also transferred down to Ole Miss. So that's going to be kind of a 2 tight end system. Both of them can make plays. Trigg should not have to be the guy there. He could just be another guy, put up consistent numbers, and then move on and show what he can do in the combine next season. Hopefully all of his off-field issues are behind him and he can just move on. Number 5 guy, Bryson Nesbitt out of North Carolina. He's going to get his fair share of targets there with Drake May. I know that they brought in Devontae Walker and Nate McCullum, but they've also lost Josh Downs. So I think Bryson Nesbitt is going to be a pretty big target for Drake May down there in North Carolina.
Agreed.
Okay, let's move on to our 2025 guys. SC, go and start us off, buddy.
Sorry, Brock Bowers. Let's just jump into another tight end out of Georgia who's probably gonna take the reins once he's gone, and that's Oscar Delp. Just a smooth route runner, guy 6'5". I mean, I loved him coming out of high school, and I was drafting him, as soon as he came out of high school. And now we might actually see some more playing time from him, especially in the coming years. I just think he's learning from one of the greater college tight ends that we're seeing right now. So I just have high hopes for him coming in, if not this year, but then the year after. I think he's going to be high on my radars. Jake Johnson out of A&M. 6'5", 6'6". I mean, this guy is super fluid for how big he is. He's very agile, and you don't really necessarily see that much in that kind of tight end play, but he also is a great pass catcher, could line up outside. He's efficient in the route running, just someone that I'm excited to see more of as well. And it's in his blood. His dad is a former NFL quarterback. His brother played at LSU, so the football gene is just in his blood, and I'm excited to see what he can do. Number 3, I have Eli Raridon. I probably said that last name wrong, but from Notre Dame, Aguilar, just a monster, just a huge target hog. He could be a machine at the next level, and what I mean by that is he can really play all around the field. If you need him to block, he could do that. If you need him to line up outside, he can do that. Just someone that I think will be kind of a gadget piece for the right coach that knows how to use him. I like Jaleel Skinner at number 4 from Miami. This guy just has a massive wingspan. He in high school he was playing at wide receiver, but because he's so massive, they moved him into the tight end spot, and now we're gonna see a little bit more out there in Miami, and I just love what he'll be able to do. Then I have another A&M guy at number 5, and that's Theo Orstrom. He's originally from Sweden, but he's very crisp in his route running. He's just very smooth cuts with it, but he knows how to get open, knows where to find the open ball, knows how to track the ball. And then when he gets that ball in his hands, he kind of just makes the first contact miss. He always knows what hands to do to stiff arm or where to make the right footwork to make it happen and make that guy miss. So A&M, there's another tight end there as well, but those 2 guys I think can definitely do some huge impacts with him, with Jake Johnson and Theo, and I'm excited to see what they can do in this upcoming class, if you will.
JT?
Yeah, for me, just the way that the Georgia's shown how they can use Brock Bowers just gets me super excited about Oscar Delp. I just think because they've already figured out how to use Bowers properly, I think they're going to move right into Delp and use him the same type of way they use Bowers, which is why he's so high up my list. And I think NFL teams are going to look at that. They're going to see what they did with Bowers, and then they're immediately going to look at Delp and kind of think of the same thing. And obviously they had Darnell Washington this year that came out as a bigger guy who got drafted by the Steelers in the 3rd round. So I just think when you see that almost like kind of Penn State, I think Georgia's kind of coming like that, where teams are starting to really trust certain colleges when they come out with stud tight ends at a position. I think teams are looking at, hey, Penn State is putting out good players. Hey, Georgia's putting out good tight ends, and guys are ready to come in and produce pretty early. So that's why I think those guys are in those positions. I think they have a little bit of an advantage over some of the other guys just because NFL teams are already on their radar. So for me, that helps as far as the Devy side of things. Like I talked about earlier, I got Mason Taylor at number 2, a guy that I think is a CFF darling waiting to happen that could move up the Devy ranks is RJ Maryland from SMU. Not RJ Maryland at Maryland, but RJ Maryland at SMU. I just think SMU is going to throw the ball around like they always do. I think there's a lot of targets that are coming open, and I could see him getting really in the mix on that offense this next year. So I really like his upside. Julius Skinner from Miami, just everything you said, SE, same thing. Everything you said about him, I like him. He's at number 4 for me. And then Texas A&M just feels like they've got a bunch of guys, just a bunch of guys in that tight end room. Now, will all of them stay at tight end, or will some guys get moved around eventually? I don't know. But I like Donovan Green there at Texas A&M at 5 for me. I just feel like he's a guy that is going to make some noise there. And with all the talent that Texas A&M keeps bringing in, you got to figure at some point this offense has to explode. They just have too many guys on offense for these guys not to get good looks and not to be getting chances in the NFL. So for all those reasons, that's why those guys are my top 5 in 2025.
Yeah, I'm going to start off with Mason Taylor out of LSU as my number 1 guy. He's got the NFL pedigree. His dad is a Hall of Fame defensive end. Just the pedigree, the athleticism, it's just in his DNA. And he showed last year as a freshman that he is a stud. And Brian Kelly knows how to utilize a tight end. And Mason Taylor is just going to continue to show how good he is. My number 2 guy, Oscar Delp, Georgia guy. Georgia's been pumping these tight ends out left and right. Delp is just the next guy after Bowers. My number 3 guy, Jaleel Skinner, long, can run. He runs like a deer. Can go up and make catches. Hopefully he starts getting a little bit more playing time. I know him and Elijah Arroyo kind of split a little bit of time there in Miami. My number 4, Donovan Green. Texas A&M has quite a few tight ends. I think he's the best one there. Normally the cream kind of rises to the top, and if hopefully Jimbo Fisher kind of defers to Bobby Petrino on that offense and allows him to get his playmakers involved. My number 5, Caden Helms out of Oklahoma. Not sure if Brett Venables is going to be a good fit there at Oklahoma. Hopefully Caden Helms can get involved there. He didn't really do a whole lot last season as a freshman, but hopefully moving forward he will. I know Venables. There's been a lot of discussion on if he's going to survive the move to the SEC coming up here in the next couple of years. Caden Helms needs to be a big part of that. And those are my top 5. Let's go ahead and get into our 2026 guys here. JT, go and start us off on this one.
So on this one, I've got Deuce Robinson going to USC. Just recently signed up at USC, so I think that's pretty big. Obviously, Lincoln Riley getting all kinds of talent there. He was, as far as the rankings I looked at, he was pretty much far and away everybody's number 1 tight end in this class. So I feel like that's a big get for them. And then with the way the offense they run it, I think he's going to get chances there. So he's a guy I like as incoming. Again, I hate to keep saying it, but Georgia, Pierce Spurlin, they got him. He's just another guy in that mix. I like the fact that he's going there and he's going to get a couple years to learn behind these other guys. I just think being around those types of players in practice every day and seeing what they do and how they practice, it can do nothing but help young guys like that because they can see, hey, man, I've been the best kid everywhere I've ever been. Now I'm going here and, man, I'm looking at these guys, and these guys have NFL pedigree. People are looking at them as first-round picks. Like, I need to start doing what these guys are doing. And I think that just helps out for guys like that. So that's why he jumps up my list a little bit there. Andrew Lapierre from Penn State. I talked about it earlier. Penn State's been able to put out some good guys. I mean, look at Britton Strange last year. Not very much stat. They didn't have great quarterback play. You didn't see much out of him on the offensive side of the ball, but he had enough tape that NFL teams looked at him like, man, this guy is someone we can utilize at the next level. And he ended up being a second-round pick by Jacksonville Jaguars. So a guy that can get out there, better QB play. I like Drew Allar a lot for Penn State. Don't know if he sees any time with Allar at all, but I like his upside. So he's my number 3. Riley Williams from Miami. Again, whenever you see these schools start pulling in and putting together quite a few classes in a row of really good players at a position, I think it does nothing but make all those players better because they got the best competition in camp as they can get and every day in practice. So I like him. And then another USC guy slipped in at number 5 to me. They got 2 of the top 5 tight ends is Walker Lyons. So I like him a lot. Now, do both those guys stay? He obviously signed before Robinson signed. So do they keep both those guys? Can they both be happy? I don't know. But I like them just coming off looking at their high school stats and kind of what they did in high school. Those guys finish out the top 5 for me.
Yeah, I got a lot of the same guys in my top 5. Deuce Robinson, I think, is the consensus top guy there in this class. My only issue with him is he going to make it to college because he's a pretty big time baseball player as well. Is he going to? He's going to be drafted. And is he going to go ahead and sign, or is he going to make it to USC? My number 2 guy, Andrew Lapierre, the tight end from Penn State. He's just one of those other types of guys who's just he's just really athletic, really just a really big wide receiver. We'll see how his inline blocking is, but really the NFL has kind of moved away from that a little bit, and they kind of favor those receiving tight ends a little bit more. My number 3 guy, Walker Lyons, for Southern Cal. If Deuce Robinson doesn't end up making it there to USC, Lyons could end up being my number 1 guy. Actually, he kind of fell down to number 3 just because if the opportunity is not necessarily there for him with Robinson, then he may kind of get buried a little bit. My number 4 guy, Ethan Davis for Tennessee. If you watch the spring game for them at all, he was fantastic. Him and Nico Iamaleava looked like they had a pretty good rapport, and he's really athletic, can really go up and get the ball. He has a broken collarbone right now and had a shoulder issue coming out of high school, but he should be healthy and actually should be a fairly decent weapon his freshman season. I kind of have a tie for my number 5, just because I don't know which one is going to be utilized more. Pierce Spurlin and Lawson Lucky for Georgia. Both of like I said, I don't know which one's going to be utilized more there. They're both super talented. Is that just going to be one of those kind of things where they kind of play them both a little bit, but don't really play either one of them full time? I want to see which one kind of separates there. So go and jump into yours, bud.
Number 1, you said that the consensus is Deuce Robinson. I mean, it's athletes like him where you're like, man, if the NFL allows you to go straight from high school to the NFL, would athletes like him do it? He's just perfectly built right now, and it's very possible for him to just be a stud in the coming years. But as you mentioned, a multi-sport athlete, and we're seeing a lot more of these multi-sport athletes in high school. And I'm gonna get into a couple more here, but Deuce is one of them where he's successful in baseball too. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. But if he is on the football field, he's definitely someone to keep an eye on. Pierce Spurlin, my number 2, out of Georgia, just kind of following that Georgia trend. Bauer is dealt, and I think Spurlin could be that next guy. He just tracks the ball well, can really catch anywhere, has a nice catch radius, just very high IQ when he needs to make the play. Number 3 is Riley Williams out of Miami. 6'6". He has great speed. He played both sides of the ball. He was an outside linebacker as well. And I like that for the tight end position because he knows how to get around the defenders, right? When he's on the defensive side, he knows what he needs to do to get around the offensive lineman, but vice versa on the tight end side at the line, he knows what he needs to do to get away from those outside linebackers that may be trying to press coverage him or anything like that as well. Number 4 is Ethan Davis out of Tennessee. This was just a very talented tight end to me. He was getting D1 offers for basketball and football, but he's going to Tennessee for football. And he's not necessarily the fastest on the field, but because of that basketball relation, he has a great IQ with the hand-eye coordination, knows where his hands needs to be to either make the block or make the catch or just make sure the quarterback knows what he needs to get to. My number 5 is Kamarian Pipton out of LSU. Just a 6'6" monster. He's a guy that has a vertical. He knows how to get that high point and get the contested catch. And when it comes to these type of tight ends, that's really what I want to see. Just kind of a playmaker that the quarterback can throw it up to, and he can make the play. And I think Pimpton could be that kind of tight end where you just, 4th and long, you just need to throw it up. Hey, he's the guy, and he'll make it happen because of what he can do at that high point to make that catch.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on Pimpton as well. I've been drafting him in a lot of my my C2C supplemental drafts kind of late, especially once other guys have kind of fallen off the board for me. Pimpton is kind of in that kind of 6-7 range for me, so he's definitely up there as well. Matter of fact, I'll mention him here. Let's get into our sleepers. Pimpton is actually one of my sleepers here for the 2026 class. I also mentioned Lawson Lucky in there. Again, I don't know which one is going to get the majority of the play there at Georgia. Is it going to be Lucky? Is it going to be Sperlin? So I want to make sure that I mentioned Lawson Lucky. Another guy I've got in the 2026 class is Jelani Thurman out of Ohio State. Big wide receiver. Ohio State doesn't really utilize a tight end all that much, but it's like we said earlier, college production for a tight end doesn't necessarily mean all that much because sometimes guys just blow it away in the pro day. Their measurables are outstanding, and the NFL just falls in love with them. And I think Jelani Thurman is going to end up being one of those guys too. SC, how about your 26 sleepers?
Yeah,
I work backwards here.
Thurman's one of mine too, and it's really he's a sleeper because you hit it. They're really wide receiver heavy. They're considered the wide receiver right? So I think for him to get more people looking at him, he'll need to be more aggressive in his blocking and get better at his pass blocking and run blocking, but he's a natural talent as well. So I mean, if he is on the field and he does get a few catches here and there and just shows his playmaking abilities, I mean, he could be great at that next level. Another one I like is Shamar Easter out of Arkansas. This is just a guy that when I'm watching his tape, he just takes off the line so quickly. He has that quick initial speed to get off the line, and then he kind of coasts the rest of the way. But in that initial, as soon as the ball snaps, it looks like, honestly, every time I'm watching it, it looks like he does a false start, but they're not calling it. He gets off so quickly that he's already ahead of the linebackers before they blink. So I think with the way the NFL is going and becoming these pass-heavy teams with these tight ends being more pass-catching tight ends than blocking tight ends, he's someone that if he continues this and continues to elevate that type of game, he's going to be really relevant. So I'm excited to see what he can do at that next level, and I think he'll be someone that you want to keep an eye on, and that's Shamar Easter out of Arkansas.
Sure thing. JT?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you guys on Jelani Thurman. A lot of talented Ohio State tight ends over the years. They just haven't got much production in college. But again, he's a 6'5", 230 guy's just an athlete. You figure out someone's going to figure out how to use him somewhere, even if he doesn't get the Ohio State production. But you never know. Maybe they take a page out of the Georgia playbook here in a year or two, and they figure out more ways to get him the ball. But just pure athlete, like I said, I just think NFL just looks at those types of guys and they figure out how to use them somewhere. So I like him in that. A couple guys that are a little bit farther down the list for me that are sleepers just because I like their situations. Brett Norfleet, he's a kid from St. Charles, Missouri, going to Mizzou, 6'7", 220. If he can put on some weight, he could definitely be a solid kid. Mizzou has been sneaky good at producing tight ends over the last decade or so, with some really guys that were really productive college players, and then some guys that played okay in the NFL, or at least got chances at the NFL, but were definitely a big CFF guys. So he's a guy that I'm maybe looking at more if I'm a CFF as opposed to a Devy draft right now. He's a guy I would maybe look at there. And then another guy like out of the same area of Missouri, out of St. Louis, Missouri, Mac Markway. He went to Desmet, one of the Catholic schools there in St. Louis. Really good high school football program at Desmet. They've been around for years. Been really good. Just real good size at him. He's already 6'4", 250. 250 coming out as a tight end in high school. I mean, the guy is just a mauler. So he's one of those, I think if he can work on his passing game, he's going to LSU. I think he's one of those guys down the line. They can figure out how to use him. I just like his size. He kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Michael Mayer type. It's just far as he's a big physical guy. He can catch, but he also can block and run after the ball. He's a little guy farther down a little bit of the rankings, but I like his landing spot at LSU just with their offense. And I just think he's a guy that's got high upside just because he's just pure physical guy, just a real big guy where some of these guys are a little more, those taller, slightly bigger wide receivers. He's a tight end. This guy's a pure tight end, and that's why I like him.
Yeah, with Markway, he almost seems as if he's kind of just like that extra offensive tackle out there to help block on the edge, who can kind of release and catch some short to intermediate balls on the outside.
Yeah, I think he's definitely way ahead of a lot of these other guys as far as blocking is concerned. But I think the receiving game is where he's going to have to improve to really kind of raise his stock. But I think the fact that he is such a good blocker and he really has good strength and size for being a young guy, I think that's going to give him a chance to kind of bolt into that lineup, and maybe he can prove himself as a blocker, prove himself there, and then over time he can work himself into a better receiving tight end.
Sure. Go ahead and move us into your 2025 sleepers there, JT.
Yeah, for 2025 here, let me pull my guys up here. Sorry about that. I was looking at it. For 2025, I had Colson Loveland from Michigan and Elijah Brown from Alabama. So Michigan, with Schoonmaker moving along, again, another place, Michigan has their tight ends in college produced a lot, not statistically wise, but they put a decent amount of guys in the NFL. They've gotten a lot of guys that have got shots at the next level. He's a guy that I want to keep an eye on for sure. And Elijah Brown, same thing. Alabama has had some really stud tight ends, some guys that have made it in the NFL, maybe guys that didn't have the biggest upside in college because they had so many good wide receivers and running backs around them. But whenever you see guys with those, they're kind of the athletic makeup, and they're on a team that good, I just feel like those are guys you got to keep an eye out for, and you want to see if their stock rises at all, and kind of keep an eye out for those types of players.
I agree with you on Colston Loveland. I actually think he's a better pass catcher than what Schoonmaker was, and I think he'll be utilized a little bit more in the passing game this coming season than what Schoonmaker was up in Michigan. My other sleeper is RJ Maryland. He's getting a lot of love as far as CFF and C2C. I want to see what his speed looks like. Game speed looks like. He didn't really do a whole lot last year, but moving into this season, Preston Stone's going to be that quarterback there at SMU. I know a couple guys a couple wide receivers have kind of moved on and transferred out of there, so that kind of opens up a little bit more opportunity for RJ Maryland. Let's see what he can do there. SC, how about you, bud?
Elijah Brown, like JT said, just someone that I think he'll see the field because he has some good blocking abilities. So I think when it comes to tight ends, especially in college, you just really want to see them on the field, even if they're not necessarily involved in like the passing game or anything. If they just show that, hey, I can be on the field when you need me to in the pass or in the blocking games, that's going to be very effective for him. And then they showcase their skills at the combine and pro days. And I think Elijah Brown will have that benefit for him. Another one I have is Keon Burnett out of Arizona. Just a guy that really plays both sides of the ball. He can. He's very physical, but he is very smooth in his route running. I like to use the word fluid. He's just someone that he kind of just whims through the line and whims through the blockers and everything he needs to do to get open and become a quarterback's best friend. So he's someone that I really like, and I'll be looking forward to drafting him later in the C2C leagues. You
both mentioned Elijah Brown out of Alabama. Does having Nye Black there also with him, does that kind of give you a little bit of pause?
For me, definitely. I mean, but a lot of these guys, there's a lot of competition at their position in the tight end. So it really comes down to who, as I mentioned with him, who's going to see the field more in blocking. I don't necessarily see Alabama as someone that's going to utilize their tight ends in the passing game. So I think it's, even if they run 2 tight end sets, I'll be looking at, all right, which side are they running to more, based on who they're lined up with for them. So it's just going to say, is he pushing down my rankings? No, but he's not necessarily someone I'm grabbing super early either. So he'll someone, late round draft pick. If he's there, hey, he could be, BPA at that point.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm kind of open, like he said, with the way the transfers have worked with people. I know in the past you got 2 guys went to a place and people are like, oh, I got to get off that guy because now he's in a competition. With the way the transfer rules worked and guys have been able to move along, and we've seen guys transfer one place and go to another place and be insanely successful and be high draft picks. So it's not like, oh, well, he's transferring because he just can't cut it. So we've seen a lot of that transfer movement. So I'm kind of changing my thinking on that. Hey, if this team has 3 good tight ends, I'm going to go the guy I think early on is the best. But if one of those guys ends up moving on, it's not going to kill it for me if he ends up at a different place. So, for me, the CFF side is where it bothers me a little bit more, like where are they going to get some production? Is he going to be real playable on that side? But I'm willing, especially at tight end, to take a loss in my weekly points, not having a tight end that scores a ton of points, to get some guys that I think are going to be studs on my NFL side of my C2C team. So I'm willing to stash some guys, especially at the tight end position. Like we said earlier, you can get some guys. I had Luke Musgrave last year at C2C. Didn't score me any points because it hurt all year, but man, was that a nice little bonus when he went high in the NFL draft. I'm like, oh, this is freaking fantastic for me. So tight end is the one spot where if I'm looking at C2C, I'm not probably using a high Devy pick on any tight end, honestly, unless it's a Brock Bowers now. I'm grabbing those guys late, but I just think you could see production later, and because of that, you can sneakily get some of these guys late, either as a pickup or a late draft pick, and kind of set them on your bench and not have to worry about production, honestly. Just sit him on your bench and be like, I want this guy to develop, and hopefully by the time he's a junior or senior, he's either producing in college or he's done enough to get the NFL look.
Sure. Hey, SC, go ahead and give us your 2024 sleeper.
So my first one is going to be Brent Kuth from Utah. We saw what Dalton Kincaid did out there in Utah. Utah knows what they need to do for their tight ends, and this guy's going to step in and just take away that role. He's going to be, I won't say as good as Dalton Kincaid, but he's definitely still a good tight end. He's a crisp route runner. He knows how to make his cuts effectively, and he doesn't go down on first contact. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do. That hurts me to say that because I'm an Oregon fan, but what they're doing with these Utah tight ends is looking great. Another one is Gavin Bartholomew from Pittsburgh. Just a huge target, man. This guy is just massive, and he's just a big target and has strong hands, but he's very athletic. There was one play, I think it was against Tennessee, where it was a 57-yard touchdown, and this guy leaped, and this leap was similar to a leap of a running back that does it. Just over the defender, leaps and just perfectly lands on his feet and continues to strive for that 57-yard touchdown.
You've hurdled him.
For his size, you don't necessarily see that in these tight ends. So if he can continue to stay healthy, continue to elevate that and work on that, I think he's going to be phenomenal. He could possibly climb the draft boards when you see him throughout the season.
Yeah, that play you're mentioning really hurt my feelings. That was the perfect hurdle, and
What?
The defender couldn't do anything about it. Trayvon Flowers just went and dove right at his legs, and he just jumped right over the top of him.
And that was after he already missed like one or two people before that. He made them miss the tackles. So, I mean, it's just phenomenal seeing guys like that make those plays. And you're like, man, I hope he continues to do that, as long as you play.
Yep. JT?
Yeah, I'm the same 2 guys, honestly, as I see here. I really like these guys. I think Kuth from Utah The guy was hurt most of last year, wasn't on a lot of high radars. If you're in a new startup C2C or CFF, he is probably right near the top of my draft order as far as when I'm ready to take a tight end. I just think he's the guy that's going to get production. They showed with Kincaid last year that they can get the tight end the ball, and I just think he's one of those guys that the NFL is going to like. So I like his Devy draft stock as well, but definitely in a CFF C2C where you're going to get points. He's a guy that, even if you're in a startup or in your league last year where nobody got him because he was hurt all year, he's a sneaky guy I'm looking for in drafts this year if I can get him. Just super high upside. Bartholomew from Pittsburgh, everything that SC just said is exactly why he's on my radar. And then one of the last guys, I think people have been waiting for him to kind of break out. It just hasn't happened yet. Is Jake Brenningstool from Clemson. He's a guy, I've been hearing people talk about him for a while now, and we just haven't seen it yet. Is this the year he puts it together with, Clay Kubnik at quarterback all year? Is this the spot where he kind of gets to shine a little bit? They get a little more look at him. He's a guy that's very interesting to me because I think he could really shoot up draft boards, or I think he could absolutely tank depending on what kind of film he puts together this year. Because I'm not sold on him totally either way. So he's a guy I want to keep an eye on. I definitely think he has that upside potential, but he's a guy that needs to prove it, I think, a little bit.
I'm right there with you on Brenningstool. He's still growing too, which is crazy. He's up to 6'7" now. I think he got to Clemson at 6'4", and he's up to 6'7", which is just ridiculous. They're going to utilize him in the screen game. They're going to utilize him with some 50-50 balls. It's kind of a mismatch with linebackers and safeties. I saw towards the end of the season, especially in the bowl game, they weren't shy to go to him when they needed a first down. Some of that may have something to do with a little bit of lack of faith in their receivers. Bo Collins and Adam Randall didn't really prove a whole lot last season, so I think they're really hoping that those two guys step up this coming season. But Brenningstool, I think, is going to have a pretty big role there at Clemson. Another guy, you guys were mentioning Brent Keithy at Utah. The other tight end there at Utah, Thomas Yasmin, that guy has NFL prototype tight end size and athleticism. He can block on the outside. He can run across the middle of the field. He can run seam routes, and he's got really good hands. Utah utilizes two tight ends really, really well. Before Keithy got hurt last season, they were utilizing him. Utilizing him and Kincaid both together. I think this year they're going to utilize Keithy and Yasmin a lot of the same way. My other guy, really, really high on him. I just can't seem to quit this guy for some reason. I've loved watching him since he was a junior in high school. Eric Gilbert out of Nebraska. He's probably the most talented. He's probably the most talented tight end skill-wise in the entire country. But he's barely played during his 3 seasons in college. He was highly touted, highly recruited 5-star tight end in the class of 2020. Began his career at LSU. Spent 1 season there in Baton Rouge, and then initially transferred to Florida, but then transferred to Georgia 6 months later. He caught 35 passes during his freshman year at LSU. Personal issues caused him to only appear in 3 games over the 2 seasons for Georgia, though. Now at Nebraska, he's awaiting a waiver from the NCAA in order to be able to play this season. If he's ruled eligible, Gilbert would give Matt Rule a bona fide number 1 option as a tight end or even a wide receiver there for the Cornhuskers. He was once considered a top 5 recruit. He's immensely talented, has the ability to play and be dominant at both tight end and receiver. He's actually the highest rated tight end ever in the history of 24/7, and I believe rivals as well. Gilbert would absolutely wow NFL scouts if he could ever get back on the field on a consistent basis. He could quite possibly have the highest RAS score ever at the NFL Combine if he gets the chance to go. He's just that freaky of an athlete. I've been a huge believer in Eric Gilbert, and I truly hope that he can reach his potential. That guy has the potential ability to be just super, super special. People drooled over Kyle Pitts' athletic ability. Eric Gilbert is quite a bit more athletic than what Kyle Pitts is.
So we've talked about like how tight ends, you don't really need to see much production, or they don't get as much production, but yet they can still pay off well. I mean, for a guy like that, what would you say you just want to see, like just a couple games of him just blowing it out the water, and then something happens and he's not able to play? I mean, is it one of those tight ends where you think the NFL coaches need to see a couple games for him to do that, or is it just they already know what he's about, and if he just gets there, he's going to be high capital?
No, I think that this is kind of a prove it year for him, just considering the fact that he's never been able to get on the field. At LSU, he was tremendous. His freshman year, he was great. Then went to Georgia, had some issues, couldn't really stay on the field there. Couldn't get on the field because he's been behind Brock Bowers. And then even last year, he was behind Darnell Washington and Oscar Delp. Just to the point where I don't know if it was a trust thing or if it was just one of those things that the coaching staff saw better things in those other three tight ends than they saw in him. I do know that he's had some personal issues in the past, especially his first season while he was at Georgia. He wasn't even on the roster for the entire first season when he was there. I think that this is going to be a kind of a prove it year for him to show that he can be on the field and then make some plays in order for an NFL team to justify taking him.
Yeah, I can agree with you completely, Tommy. I'm the same page. I don't even know if it's about production really for him. I think teams just want to see, can he be on a team for an entire year? Can he actually play on that team and be part of the team for the whole season? I think that's more than the production. I think people are going to love what he brings athletically. So now if can he play for a whole year and show some production, I think he does that. Then he moves way up draft boards. I think somebody's going to take a chance on him regardless. He's too athletic. Somebody's going to sign him as an undrafted free agent. Someone's going to give him a chance. But I think this is the year that he proves that he can stay on a team, whatever was in the past, whatever happened personally with him. He's getting past that. He's worked through it. I think that's what teams want to see. They want to see, hey, that's behind him. He was a part of the team. They want to go to an ex-NFL coach like Matt Rule and say, hey, how was he? Would he fit in an NFL locker room? Could he make it? I think that's the big thing for him. Can he play? Can he be on the field? Can he be part of the team the whole season? And can he get an endorsement from his head coach saying, hey, this guy's got all the ability of the world. I think he maybe has passed some of his issues in the past. I think he's moved on, and I think this guy could be a stud. So I don't think he needs huge production. I think being on the field and actually playing is more important than anything. But if he can put a little production out there, he can put out some high. I mean, when you look at Darnell Washington, guy didn't have a ton of catches because they didn't use him that way with Brock Bowers. But, man, he had a couple big catches. He had a couple plays he's running people over. He had some nice work where he showed his blocking, and that was enough to make him a third rounder. And people were saying, hey, if it wasn't for a few injury concerns and how deep this tight end class was, he probably was more like an end of the first, beginning of the second round pick in a different situation. So that's kind of how I feel with Gilbert. I just think he just needs to have that year where he puts it together and just stays on the field and is active for every game and plays in every game as long as he's healthy.
Yep.
That's fair.
Yeah, sure thing there. Guys, I think that's going to do it for this week's show. Go and tell us where it is we're able to find you guys and if you got anything special going on.
SC, find me at the PPR. So PPR shows are going to start coming back. Was sick and then had a vacation there. So follow us on YouTube, the PPR show with SC Romero, and then on Twitter at the PPR show. articles on RPO football, and then soon I'll be getting some Devy articles out for Dynasty Pros as well.
Yeah, you guys can find me at JT Orange on Twitter, answer a little bit of everything. I've got my show that I do outside of this one on Dynasty Pros Football called The Stew with JT Brew. Just put an episode out with all my gambling takes and win-loss records for the NFL for the upcoming season. So just put that out there. So that's on the page. Go ahead and check that out on the Dynasty Pros YouTube page. Also, can find articles from me on DLF, writing stuff on there, and then always jumping on this show and also the Commissioner Evaluation podcast on PT. I jump in and co-host that show sometimes. So I'm kind of all over the place. You can find me all around.
Awesome. And I'm, of course, Tommy Harvey. I'm at Dynasty Pros Tom on Twitter. Do a lot of Devy stuff for DynastyProsFootball.com. I do a lot of pretty much everything for DynastyProsFootball.com. Check us out whenever you have the chance to. Jump on our Twitter also, at Dynasty Pros FF. Let us know if you have any questions, if you just want to discuss anything, just holler at us. For more content, head on over to DynastyProsFootball.com. Thanks for tuning in. Also, if you haven't done so already, hit that thumbs up and subscribe. For SC and JT, I'm Tommy Harvey. We'll see you next time, guys.